Hi, how you doing? It's that time again where the Goat Monodash releases another character analysis video. I know the last one was like 2 videos ago, but it's been like a month. And when I was thinking of a character to make this analysis on, I couldn't stop my mind going to Tempest Shadow, a character in a movie I find aggressively mid, if not bad, but that her in particular always felt like more, and in this video, I decided to explore why that is. I just want to preface the analysis by saying, I know her real name is Fizzle Pop Berry Twist, but I'm going to be calling her Tempest Shadow for the duration of this video. I don't know if anyone was going to have a problem with that or not, but I just wanted to save time by saying it here. And now that that's all established, let's get on to the actual analysis of Tempest Shadow. Tempest Shadow works because she's simple, done well. The broken horn tells you everything. Broken horn, broken trust. It's visual storytelling 101, and it immediately separates her from every other antagonist in the franchise, really. She's the first major character with a permanent physical defect like this, and the film incorporates it into her main arc, being the entire reason she ended up going down the dark path she did. The way she moves tells us the same story. Every posture is stiff, guarded, and controlled, like she's spent her whole life bracing for impact from a world that already hit her once. Even the way she stands next to other characters makes her feel like she's holding herself in, trying to take up as little emotional space as possible while still dominating the room physically. Tempest feels like she wandered in from a darker fantasy world by accident and decided to stay out of spite, and that contrast makes her instantly compelling. While every other villain in My Little Pony tends to lean into the magical ambition or comedic theatrics, her motivation is painfully grounded. It's a very realistic core wrapped in a very sharp design. In a weird way, she's what Starlight Glimmer could have been if the show had wanted to explore a genuinely serious, trauma-driven arc. Someone shaped by real loss rather than abstract ideology. And that's why Tempest hits so hard, I think. She's not complicated in terms of plot mechanics, in any way. She's not hiding a secret master plan, she's not performing for the audience. She's just a straightforward, emotionally honest character whose entire identity has been carved by one moment that the world keeps reminding her of. That simplicity, executed with total confidence, makes her more memorable than characters who get entire seasons of development. By far the worst thing about Tempest in the My Little Pony movie is that the film includes her, clearly knows she's the strongest part of the story, and then absolutely refuses to let her carry the narrative. Instead, it sidelines her in favour of a goofy, wandering fetch quest that feels like it was added just to justify new locations and sell merchandise. The tonal juxtaposition there really feels bad because whenever she's on screen, it suddenly feels like a completely different film. Darker, sharper, more intentional. And then the second she exits, we're going back to Pirate Birds doing slapstick. Her emotional pacing ends up getting squeezed into the gaps between gags, so her arc plays out like hurt to angry to loyal to betrayed to redeemed, all in what feels like, 8 minutes of total screen time? It's honestly kind of a crime how good she is compared to what the story actually lets her do. She has all the setup for a slow burn villain redemption, someone with real weight, but the movie rushes past every beat of it. And that's the frustrating part. Her scenes feel like deleted scenes from a better version of this film. One that actually wanted to lean into her character-driven storytelling instead of bouncing between set pieces. You can almost sense the great movie that could have existed underneath all the pacing issues and tonal whiplash. A version where Tempest is allowed to breathe, to unravel and to matter, but instead, the film keeps running away from the thing it accidentally did really, really well. So anyone who's watched this film knows, Tempest is not the main villain of the story. No. Instead, there's the Storm King. The Storm King is a meme villain. Loud, snarky, toyetic, constantly posing like he's starring in his own marketing campaign. Tempest, meanwhile, is basically a Shakespearean villain who wandered into whatever the film is, and the film makes her the secondary antagonist, the lower priority villain. And yet she's the one written with actual depth and emotional weight. Meanwhile, the Storm King, the supposed big bad, feels like someone added him with a sticky note that said, needs boss fight. It's actually crazy how Tempest's entire motivation is built on trauma, abandonment, and a desperate need for security, then a boss shows up and acts like a sarcastic BuzzFeed article in monkey form. Every time he speaks, it's like the movie is reminding you not to take any of this too seriously, even though Tempest is literally anchoring the emotional core of the story. And that mismatch undercuts her stakes constantly. When she's on screen alone, the tension is real. When he shows up, it evaporates into quips and chaos. It's not that comedic villains can't work, My Little Pony's done them before, but pairing a grounded, tragic character with your average MCU villain makes it impossible for her arc to hit with the full force it deserves. The Storm King isn't just a weak villain on his own. He actively gets in Tempest's way, not as part of the plot, but because his tone pulls the movie in opposite directions every time he appears. Here's the thing nobody really wants to admit about the My Little Pony movie. Tempest Shadow is the main character. The film keeps insisting it's Twilight story, the posters, the marketing, the whole lesson about friendship angle, but when you actually break down where the emotional energy is, it all points straight to Tempest. She's the only character with a coherent motivation, a defined internal conflict, and payoff that actually changes her. Meanwhile, Twilight technically goes through an arc, but it feels strangely disconnected, almost like the movie forgets she's supposed to be the protagonist half the time. Every major plot beat, the invasions, the turning points, the tonal shifts, they all come from Tempest's actions. She drives the story forward whether she's on screen or not. The main six in comparison feel like they're just reacting to whatever she does next. And that's another weird part. The characters are supposed to be on a big cinematic adventure, yet they never meaningfully affect anything really. They walk into set pieces, get chased out of set pieces, and then leave without changing the world or themselves in any substantial way. It's fun, but it's fluff. Tempest is the one carrying the emotional weight, and you can feel it in every scene shift. Whenever the movie cuts back to Tempest, the tone tightens, the humour drops, the stakes rise. Suddenly the story remembers it's supposed to matter. Her flashback in her song hits harder than anything involving Twilight. Her conversations with the Storm King show more nuance in her character than any of the main six's interactions. She has a past, a wound, a goal, a conflict, and ultimately a transformation. That's the structure of a protagonist, even if the movie doesn't want to admit it. If you remove Tempest from the story, the entire plot collapses instantly. The Storm King simply isn't nearly a strong enough villain to carry or drive the entire narrative. The irony is that Tempest works so well that she ends up overshadowing the characters we came to see. Twilight's supposed crisis about leadership and trust feels tiny compared to Tempest's trauma, regret, and desperate attempt to reclaim what she lost. And because her arc is stronger, more grounded, and simply more interesting, the movie accidentally shifts its entire focus onto her. She's not meant to be the star, but by the time the credits roll, she's the only character who truly feels like one. Tempest's redemption is one of those moments where your heart goes, yes, but your brain goes, wait, how did we get here so fast? Emotionally it lands. Narratively, it's basically an any percent glitch the speedrun of a character arc. The movie clearly wants her to be this huge, sweeping, cathartic payoff, the kind of thing you'd see as the climax of a season-long storyline in the show, but they try and cram it all into the last 10 minutes and you really feel the compression. The moment she leaps to save Twilight, gorgeous. It's one of those scenes where the animation, the score, and her performance all lock together perfectly. It does feel earned because we felt the whole movie understanding her pain and her loneliness, but then you realise she goes from friendship is useless and I will do literally anything to get what I want, to I'll sacrifice my entire life for Twilight Sparkle in, like, 2 scenes. It's the definition of rushed brilliance. You can see the outline of what this arc should have been. A long, slow fall apart of her loyalty to the Storm King, more cracks in the armour, more moments where the mask slips, the building tension of someone who's been betrayed before slowly realising she's about to be betrayed again. That stuff needed breathing room and the movie just didn't have it. Doesn't have time for it because of all the time it spent on the pointless stuff. Her emotional shift is right. The runtime is wrong. The fireworks scene and the quiet vulnerability, all that is peak My Little Pony writing. So peak that it almost exposes how much more the story wanted to give her. If this was a multi-episode arc, she would have had the space to fully earn that redemption instead of speedrunning her way to self-sacrifice. Her turn works, it genuinely does, but with just a little more time, it could have been legendary. Imagine Tempest dropped into Friendship's Magic somewhere around seasons 5 to 9. She would have cooked. That era of the show is all about characters dealing with trauma, rebuilding their identities, and figuring out how to exist around people who don't quite trust them yet. And Tempest fits into that formula so perfectly it almost hurts. You can practically see the episodes we never got. Her trying to relearn basic unicorn magic with a shattered horn, quietly frustrated but pretending she's fine. Her struggling to rebuild old friendships or even make new ones because she's forgotten how to not be on guard 24/7. Her getting into passive-aggressive, emotionally charged clashes with Starlight because they're basically mirrors of each other, but built from different genres. That alone could carry an entire season. But what makes it worse is that Tempest is one of those characters who's honestly too good for the medium she debuted in. She's layered, visually iconic, thematically rich, and written with enough bite that she could anchor a serious character drama. But she appeared in a money-driven side film that didn't have the time to truly explore her. The comics tried to pick up the pieces, but they barely scratch the surface of what this character could have become with real narrative breathing room. You read them and think, okay, this is fine, but where's the rest? And also, we should have had this from the start, because there's so much missing in the film. My Little Pony doesn't often nail the dark but not grimdark, edgy but not cringe, and tragic but not melodramatic tone. They fumble it all the time, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, they create basically the perfect version of that archetype. A character who embodies trauma, loyalty, resentment, vulnerability, redemption, and they just never use her again. She's the kind of character who screams long-form storytelling, not one movie and few comics. She's incredible, she fits the world, she expands the tone, and she deserves so much more than a singular movie to prove it. To conclude, and to summarise, Tempest deserved a story that actually matched her tone, her pacing and her stakes, not the weird tonal smoothie that she got shoved into. She's written like she stepped out of a darker fantasy film. something with quieter moments, a heavier atmosphere, and real emotional weight. But instead, she ends up in a plot where the pacing is breakneck, the stakes wobble between serious invasion and friendship road trip, and the emotional beats spring past each other like it's some kind of competition. Tempest Shadow is the single best example of right character, wrong story in the entire franchise. She's not right for the movie, or the movie's not right for her, or maybe those two things mean the same thing, I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is that in a different movie, one that would have given her time to breathe, to unravel, to slowly shift from antagonist to ally in a way that didn't feel like narrative equivalent of slam cutting between scenes, Tempest would have been legendary. What her presence accidentally proves is kinda painful. The My Little Pony movie had the ingredients to be a masterpiece. The animation, the score, the themes, it's all there in her scenes. Every time she appears, the film suddenly feels focused, mature and grounded, like it knows exactly what it wants to say. She brings gravity the story isn't prepared to accommodate, and that contrast ends up exposing how lightweight everything around her is. If the film had matched her energy, her seriousness, her visual storytelling, and the emotional texture of her arc, we might have gotten one of the strongest narratives in the entire franchise. She's living proof that the movie could have been phenomenal. Instead, she shines in spite of it, standing there like this brilliant cinematic character who wandered in from a better version of the story we never actually got. And that's it for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed. I'm not the biggest fan of the My Little Pony movie if you haven't been able to tell already, but I still view Tempest as being a great conceptual and even executed villain, despite the lack of time the film gave her, and I'm still sour about how focused the stupid Storm King was in that film. Genuinely peak rage bait. Anywho, if you did enjoy this video, please leave a like down below, and while you're down there, consider subscribing if you haven't already. We're so close to 10k and I want to see if we can hit it before the channel turns 1 year old, because that'll truly be insane. If you want to support the channel even more, you could become a channel member. Thanks to the Red Ravioli, Creative Zone, and MyFumi for being monotonal members. And with that, till next week, thanks for watching, I've been Monodash, and I'll see you sometime soon.